Well, you never know. Sometimes it seems like.
Okay, welcome everybody to the Sarpy County Board of Equalization meeting. Today is Tuesday, August 4th, 2026. It's 3:01 p.m. Anyone wishing to speak either during the public comment or on a specific agenda item, we ask that you sign in with Tabby over here on my left, the county clerk, representing the county clerk. And if you want to speak to a specific agenda item, it's encouraged that in the future you try to do that. Let us know in advance so we can make sure that you're accommodated and given the time you need. There is no longer a copy of the Nebraska Opens Meeting Act on the north wall of the agency room, but because we're in tune to your needs, we will make it available upon request. So that wasn't my idea, but that's the new rules, right? That's very good. So in attendance today, we have all 5 commissioners, our county administrator, Bonnie Moore, Tabby Belushi's running the council for the clerk. I see our treasurer, Jeff Mikesell, and our county assessor, Dan Pittman. If you haven't, silence your phone and let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Five items on consent. Unless any of the commissioners want to see one of those moved, I take a motion to approve as published.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Warren, second by Commissioner Klug. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion passed.
Okay, on the regular agenda, just one item. It's tax correction 17990, Dan Pittman. Any questions for Dan?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Klug, second by Commissioner Warren. Please vote.
Motion passed.
Okay, there's no need for an executive session, so all agenda items having been addressed as published. The Board of Equalization is adjourned, and we'll set up for our commissioners meeting. Okay. Welcome to the Sarpy County Board of Commissioners meeting. Today is Tuesday, August 4th, 2026. It's 3:04 p.m. Again, on the public comment, as I previously stated, you're welcome to address the board. And the Opens Meeting Act rules are available upon request. So, commissioners' comments, we'll start with Commissioner Mixon.
I have none, thank you.
Okay.
One comment. We have a young man with us today from all the way in from Washington State, just so he could sit in one of our commissioner meetings. So welcome.
Idaho, he said.
Idaho?
Idaho, that's right. I knew it was west, right? Yeah.
What is Idaho known for? Potatoes. Good job. I love French fries. So we're very thankful for Idaho. Angie?
No comments, thanks.
No comment, thank you.
No comment,
Nothing?
thank you.
Okay, well, we'll get right into the meeting then. We have, well, does anybody from the public want to come up, or? No? Okay. We'll get right into the consent agenda. We have 5 items on the consent agenda. Unless one of the commissioners wants to see that moved to the regular agenda for discussion, I'll take a vote to approve as published.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Warren and a second by Commissioner Klug. Any further comments? Please vote.
Motion passed.
Okay, on the regular agenda, item 6.1 is Resolution 216, awarding the low bid to Gym Restoration Services, Inc. for the Werner Park exterior painting project in the amount of $75,740. Beth Garber, Assistant County Administrator.
Thank you. On June 30th, the purchasing department opened 5 bids for the exterior painting project at Warner Park. The low bidder is Gem Restoration in the amount of $75,740. The bids ranged as high as $573,300. The project involves painting all columns, beams, and concrete surfaces, including surface prep and removing rust. The project will begin as soon as September 21st and conclude by the end of the year.
Questions for Beth?
That is a huge range of bids.
It is huge. The contractor who painted it last time around was the second low bid, so we're comfortable with the low bid on this one too.
Also just kind of points out the importance of getting more bids. since
Yes.
There were a few that were high. I was glad to see. The highest one was not a local contractor, but yeah, that's a big range. So thanks for your work on this.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Klug and a second by Commissioner Burmeister. Any further discussion? Questions? Please vote.
Motion passed.
Okay, item 6.2 is Resolution 217. That is to award the low bid to Becker Trenching and Water, Inc. for the Prairie Corners Gravity Sewer repairs in the amount of $396,933.45. Beth?
Thank you. On June 23rd, the purchasing department opened 6 bids for the Prairie Corners Gravity Sewer Repair Project. The low bidder is Becker Trenching in the amount of $396,933.45. The bids for this project ranged as high as $623,974.40. The engineer's estimate for the project was $781,812. So based on the map, the project consists of installing 516 feet of new sanitary sewer line, abandoning the existing broken sewer line, and installation of a steel casing to provide additional protection to the new line. And you may recall that the board did previously approve an MOU for cost sharing with Willa for $160,000 for repair expenses.
Questions for Beth?
Yes, with the estimate being so far below the engineer's estimate, or the cost being so far below the engineer's estimate, are you still comfortable with the?
Yep. HDR is here today if you want to speak to them about that, but they did write a recommendation letter and they are comfortable proceeding forward.
Okay, thank you. Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Klug, a second by Commissioner Warren. Any further questions for Beth or comments? Please vote.
Motion passed.
Okay, item 6.3 is Resolution 218. It's to award the low bid to Bush Turf, Inc. for the Werner Park bullpen upgrades in the amount of $142,175. Beth?
On June 30th, the purchasing department opened 2 bids for the bullpen upgrades project at Warner Park. The low bid is Bush Turf in the amount of $142,175. The other bid was $244,734. The project consists of rebuilding both bullpens at Warner Park to meet Professional Development League PDL standards. The work will begin September 21st and be completed by October 9th.
So this is just for the bullpen, is that right?
This is just for the bullpen, so it includes the bullpen turf, the grading, electrical, fencing.
Okay, and so what is our maintenance allowance for Werner Park every year now? What is it up to, the total?
How much we spend on maintenance, Commissioner?
Yeah,
I could get that number for you, but we don't have a specific dollar amount.
okay. I used to sit on the Werner committee, and we had a specific dollar amount every year, and it was like 100,000, I want to say. And we found that it wasn't enough to keep up with the maintenance that was required in the stadium, and that was kind of that preceded that first painting job we did. And, you know, when you're getting like 10 years, now we're what, 12 years into the stadium? And so more and more maintenance issues are going to pop up. So we had set aside a pot of money for that, but we don't do that anymore.
Dan, you want to talk about CapEx?
So specifically for Warner Park, you know, the maintenance and capital expenses that we budget at Warner Park really come from two different sources. They come from lodging tax revenue and Keno revenue. We don't necessarily set aside a specific dollar amount that's the same year after year after year. I could tell you that this year, without having the numbers right in front of me, the capital projects budget is about $900,000. The maintenance budget, I believe, just general maintenance, is about $160,000. So you're looking at just over $1 million for both of those together.
Okay, so do we cover all the maintenance with that amount of money?
I believe we do. I mean, do you know more about how much, Mark? You want that one?
There's some maintenance, like the painting, I believe, is our responsibility in the contract. Generally speaking, the maintenance is covered by the storm chasers and capital projects are covered by the county.
Okay, so, and that's all specified in contract, right? And so when is our contract up for renewal?
2036.
36.
So we're tied into this relationship for another 10 years?
Yes.
Okay. Well, so the reason I bring that up is because things have changed since I was overseeing the ballpark. And it was like pulling teeth to get the tenant to do any maintenance. And so the county owns the stadium, so I thought, like any landlord-tenant relationship, if I'm renting something from somebody, I'm going to expect them to do the major upkeep on the maintenance, you know, whether it be urinal repair or that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And so that's why we had set aside that budget. And I'm not saying that's a great way to go, but it seems like it's in our best interest as the owners of the stadium that the maintenance is maintained and upkept on a routine and annual basis. And so maybe this year we attack the painting, which is something you'd probably want to do about every 5 to 8 years, somewhere in there. And, you know, that way we can kind of plan, project how much we want to set aside for these things that need to be maintained, because that old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Is that right? So if the maintenance isn't being done or it's being neglected, it could end up costing us a lot more money in the long run. And so the reason I asked when's the contract up, because maybe in the next contract iteration, we'd want to take over the maintenance and increase our fee for rent to cover those maintenance costs. So we're not going to get hit with these big capital expenditures that come around every once in a while because we didn't do something we probably should have been doing on a more frequent basis in terms of annual maintenance. Does that make sense?
I would say, Commissioner, that approach makes perfect sense, and our facilities team plus Tom Dargy plus Beth do a great job of pushing on the storm chasers and with some of those maintenance requirements. But I agree, there's some things that could be more clear, and that if you delay a maintenance issue, it could become a capital projects issue.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect contract by any means.
No, and nothing's perfect, and I don't expect it to be perfect, but we own a baseball stadium. And I want our baseball stadium to be a place that people want to go to. I want it to be a great amenity. And, you know, and I don't want urinals closed or, you know, restrooms inoperative and that kind of stuff, because it really hurts us. It hurts the taxpayers, but it also doesn't help our tenant.
And I
be
would say,
successful.
Commissioner, as part of our capital projects, Tom and Mark have worked really hard to develop a 3-year plan
Yeah.
to try to avoid those unexpected expenditures and into future year budgets. So we are working on that, and we do agree with you.
Yeah, I wouldn't think it'd be that hard to develop a 3-year plan because we know we're gonna need a new scoreboard every 10 years. We know we're gonna need paint every whatever years. And I mean, we got a 12-year track record. I think, history isn't always a good projection of future needs, but I would think it would at least provide us a baseline so we can look at that. I just remember when we were talking to the new owners and, you always want to know where you stand, you always want feedback. And the feedback wasn't bad. It was pretty complimentary, actually, but it basically said, you guys are doing great. You're right at the 50% level, I'm going like, well, I don't know. In school, when we went to school, I always wanted to be, C or above. I wanted to be above 50%. I wanted to be in the top, right? You want to be in the top. Well, that takes financial commitment, and it takes planning, and it takes conscious effort to get that done. So, and I am not saying that none of that is not occurring now. That's not the case. I probably should have had this conversation with you guys offline, just out of fairness, because you weren't expecting these questions. But I think as a board and responsible for a stadium, I think generally I can say we want the stadium to be as nice as it can be, without having to commit an endless amount of resources to keep it that way. Does that make sense?
I've been involved with this extensively today, and the ounce of prevention is going to be millions of pounds of cure. It's a very complex thing. Bonnie's doing her best to get them to go back and reopen the contract, but as with everything else, once you're moved in, and the rules are changing. We're now obligated to meet Major League Baseball's requirements, which said you use contractors that we approved, not necessarily the lowest contractor, and it changes the whole expensing of what goes on. And then you get into the complexity of, what's long-term care, what's short-term maintenance, and if short-term maintenance is not done, then we're running into more of those million-dollar projects pretty quickly. So I can vouch. I've talked to multiple people on it today, and they're on top of it. They're working. They're doing their best. But I'm going to venture a statement, say it's going to get ugly before it gets pretty. So.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things that go on with that stadium that are beyond our control. I mean, when we built the stadium, these nets that line the whole infield now go all the way to the foul. That was never a requirement, but then it became a requirement, and it's kind of like you guys, we all understand unfunded mandates, right? Seems like we're getting a lot of unfunded mandates too, and you really can't plan for that, but what we can plan for is having some resources set aside. Call it an emergency fund, call it a contingency fund, call it whatever you need. Because even though I don't know what the expenses are going to be, I'm pretty certain they're going to be expenses. And I'd rather have some funds, standing by so that we can meet the requirement at the time, instead of trying to scramble and figure out how are we going to fix, how are we going to pay for this, how are we going to cover it. So anyways, probably off the subject, but appreciate your answers.
There's a lot of information was given, and Commissioner Warren gave a lot of what I was going to say, but I also look at this and see the lack of bids. There were 2 bids, and to Commissioner, to Angie's comments about the other thing that we approved, we had several bids. Now, I understand why there is a lack of bids, because again, it's being controlled it's out of our control. They're asking for these contractors that have certain letters behind their name. So I'll let you go ahead with that, Beth, and explain a little bit more.
Sure. As part of the minimum qualifications in the RFP, contractors had to have the American Sports Builders Association certified field builder endorsement, and they also had to have construction experiments, or not experiments, but construction experience in fields for MLB, PDL, and or the NCAA. So based on those qualifications, purchasing contacted 6 firms, regional firms that had those, and tried to solicit bids from them. We also had 2 pre-bid meetings to try to open it up even further for any contractors from outside the area that couldn't make it to the first pre-bid.
Are those requirements in our contract, or why are we required to have those?
These requirements were from PDL and MLB and put into the specifications.
So in our contract, we're required to use those, or?
I think things like stated have to be in compliance with MLB standards.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could, it's part of the complexity of this. It's like your tenants tell you, oh, now I want more and I want better. And if we're going to keep a major league team, there's no option. They mandate to us now what's going to be done. The stadium netting, the type of seats, the quality of whatever. So it's just, we definitely need, and Bonnie's doing a good job of trying to get engaged back again with DBI so that we can start talking contract. But
And I understand, wanting to have those requirements like on the field, but the turf and the bullpen, I'm not sure we need somebody with a lot of letters behind their name for the turf and the bullpen.
As far as I am hearing, it is very complex. It is like,
Oh, really?
it is a project of inches, and right now we're 2 inches off, and that's the big issue, besides all the grading and other things underneath, but it is extremely technical.
Just couldn't put the green side up, huh?
It's not quite that easy.
No, I'm sure it was complex. I'm sure there were utilities and all kinds of things that had to be accounted for, but nevertheless, we would like to see more bids if possible in the future, but with stringent requirements like that, you're really going to narrow the field down.
Well, I think another thing that's important is there's this thing about what's maintenance and what's a capital project. And that kind of got this thing, it perplexed this situation or complicated this situation. So with that being said, the laying of turf is not complicated. The specs kept changing on this project, and right, wrong, or indifferent, but there's more to the story. And unfortunately, and the company that's selected, they're going to do an excellent job. There's no question about that. But there's just other things in here that that need to be resolved. And we talked about them this morning because you also need to have this resolved to attract bidders. Because when you start doing some of the stuff, and here we're the owner, but we have somebody dictating to us of what we can do and can't do in our stadium. And it's a situation that needs to be changed. So having said that, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to abstain from this vote because, and I always knew this, I have a little bit of a conflict because I know one of the bidders and they're actually related to me. And, but they're not on the final list either. And so things changed, specs changed, laying turf is not hard. Some of the other specs are more complicated, but they're also specs. They're not, this is not a rocket science project.
So I will say that we did have one addendum in this project. When Sarpy County received the specifications from the storm chasers, we went out for bid, we did issue one addendum. That addendum changed 2 major things in the project. The first one is that we updated the project start and completion date to try to widen the bid pool and give more flexibility to the vendors. The second one is that we opened it up to the NCAA field contractors. Before that, it was just PDL and MLB, again, trying to open it up to more contractors. The third major change is we added the second pre-bid meeting, again, to try to solicit more contractors.
Well, appreciate your work on that, and appreciate answering all the questions. Does anybody else have any comments?
I don't. Thanks for your work, Beth. It's a tough situation with our contract. We'll have to try to work through some of those next time around, but appreciate your hard work.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Warren and a second by Commissioner Klug. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion passed.
Okay, item 6.4 is our last item today, and it's our fourth quarter fiscal year 2026 financial update. Dan Talakis, Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, Commissioners. Good afternoon. I always like to start this presentation just as a reminder that on our webpage, the fiscal and budget webpage of the county website, these reports are posted and they go back about 5 years. So at any point in time, the public or anybody can go back and see and follow along into the future as these are posted quarterly as well. So the intent here today is to review the fiscal year 26 fourth quarter financials. This is a nice time to look at these reports, these two pages of this dashboard report. They really paint a very good picture both for the county and for the county's financials. So we'll start on page 1 of the dashboard report, which looks at what is our fiscal year 26 actuals when compared to our budget. And we kick that report off with looking at our revenues. And I'll start with the total line. Budgeted revenues about $201 million and actual revenues $220 million. So we had $19 million more in actual budget received than what our revenue budget was. That is countywide. Specifically with the general fund, it was about $9 million over budget. This is due mostly to our budget tenet, which is to be conservative when looking at that revenue budget. We don't want to be overly aggressive with those revenues and have a shortfall down the road. The best example that I can provide of that is something like interest income. We budget that revenue line item fairly conservatively, about $3 million annually. This year and last year, both years, we took in over $8 million in that line. So as we look at the different categories, local, federal, and state revenue all look great. Property taxes, your eyes might be drawn to that 93% actual collection versus what our budget was. That is really just an issue where when homestead credits are received, those are budgeted as property tax revenues, but when those homestead tax credits are received, they come in as a state revenue. So you'll see that state revenue is about $5 million over budget, property taxes about $5 million under budget. That's essentially that reason right there. As we move on to expenses, again, this is county-wide. I'll look at the total line item. We had about $314 million budget, and our actual expenses about $226 million. So that would be an $88 million variance in spending less than budget. I would like to point out and have you guys recall that our budget must appropriate the spending of every dollar, but that's not reality. So we've highlighted on this page future planning. The part of our expense budget which is designated for future planning is about this $47 million. And in addition to that, we have about a $21 million cash reserve that for all intents and purposes, we don't plan on spending those dollars either. If you back those out of that $88 million, we were really $19 million under budget in what we thought we were actually going to spend. That is actually, when you're looking at just the general fund, it's about $7.2 million under budget, and both in the general fund and countywide in those other funds, most of those savings are really due to capital projects and the timing of those projects. The third section of that first page of the report is a cash report. And at June 30th, 2026, we ended the year with $107 million of cash on hand. I'm only going to touch on one item here, and that is the ARPA balance. We have $13,000 of ARPA funds remaining. That must be spent by December 31st. It's already obligated. We're essentially waiting on one more invoice for the final project, which is the last siren that we were going to install with ARPA dollars. So we'll get that invoice here in the next few months. We'll pay that. We'll be done with ARPA. And at that point, we'll prepare a report for the board summarizing the spending of the full $36 million that the county received. The rest of these funds here, we'll talk a little bit more on the second page about the cash picture. And then the fourth section on the first page, just a look at what our self-insured insurance fund looked like for the fiscal year. Really the thing to draw your eyes to here is that both on the revenue side and on the expenditure side, we're seeing pretty much over budget in revenue, over budget in expenditures across the board. We do have a contingency, we do have a reserve in this line item, or in this fund. So we are okay, but I did want to draw to your attention that revenues are over budget a little bit because we had a little bit of a discrepancy in the actual enrollment versus what our projected enrollment would be. We are over budget on the expense side. We had claims that came in over expected claims. Our stop loss premium increased as well. So over the course of the fiscal year, we recognized about a $339,000 deficit in the self-insured insurance fund. We'll look at that again in a little bit of a different light on the second page here as well. So first page of the dashboard report, are there any questions about actual to budget fiscal year 26 numbers? Okay. Move on to the second page of the dashboard report here. And this second page is a comparison of the 12 months of fiscal year 25 against the 12 months of fiscal year 26. So again, starting with revenues, we'll look at that total revenue line item, $221 million this year, $194 million last year. It's about a $26 million increase in revenue year over year. The line directly above that, transfers, you'll see that we increased our transfers between funds by almost $13 million last year. So if we back that out, we're really looking at about $13,000 or $14,000 of increased revenue, or revenue higher than it was the last fiscal year. About half of that, $6.6 million, comes from increased property tax revenue. We did see increases in state revenue, federal revenue, and local revenue across the board. In terms of expenses, last year we spent $190 million. This year we spent $226 million. So we have a $35 million more that we spent this year than last year. Again, let's back out the $13 million of increased transfers. We really have about $22 million of increased spending. And you'll see that majority of that right here is this investment in capital outlay. Specifically, those are road projects, and that's the modernization of the 911 center. Here we get the good picture of cash. What was cash like at the end of June last year versus what is cash like at the end of June 30th, 2026. And you'll see that last year we had about $112 million, this year $107 million. So we decreased cash overall throughout the whole county by about $5 million. Again, here I'll point out that the Public Works Fund had a decrease in cash of almost $10 million. Again, that's just reflective of the investment that we've made in those road projects. And the other item I'll point out here is we actually see a $3 million increase in the sewer funds. That is reflective of the additional reserves that we contributed for the wastewater agencies, NDEE, and WIFIA loans.
It is bizarre that the inheritance tax number is almost exactly the same.
Yeah, so we did take on a significant amount of new inheritance tax revenue, but we also are spending out of the inheritance tax fund for the public safety modernization of the 911 center. So,
What, do you know what the number is? So that's just the number, that's the net number, right?
correct. Are you looking for the number of the actual revenue of inheritance tax over the fiscal year? I don't know it in fiscal year 25 off the top of my head. Fiscal year 26 is about $7 million.
Thanks.
The section here in yellow, this is just a different look at our self-insured insurance fund. This is looking by plan year, or calendar year this year rather than fiscal year. So in 2023, the only thing we did was we front-loaded that fund with $1.4 million of employer money to get that fund up and going and started. 2024, this is a full plan year. 2025, this is a full plan year. 2026, we're looking at about half of a year right now. So if you look at this plan year performance line in 2024, the first year of the plan, we added about $1 million into the self-insured insurance fund by the performance of the fund. In 2025, about $350,000, and then so far in 2026, we're about a $388,000 deficit in that fund. We knew going into this, and it'll continue this way, that fund is going to ebb and flow. It just happens to be a year where we're having some expenses that are over what we anticipated or projected. One thing to note here, effective July 1, we switched to a new insurance broker. So we're really looking at how can we tackle some of these things from a different perspective, kind of behind the broker, the services side of things, instead of just looking at keeping the plan the same and things like that year over year. Final section here on this second page, just a snapshot of what the county's outstanding debt looks like at the end of June 30th. And then going to the right here, we see the projection for the future of the existing debt. One thing I'll note here is that next year, we're a couple months away here from issuing $200 million in a new debt issuance for road projects. Did I say 200,000? I meant 200 million. So you'll see this 2027 column is actually going to double. We are going to more than double what our outstanding debt principal is on this chart going forward. With that is some really great news I shared with you yesterday, that earlier in July, we went through our rating call with Moody's. Yesterday, we got our rating back from Moody's, and the county did maintain its AAA rating, which is really great both for the county and for the taxpayers, because that's where it's really going to save some money, is on the interest rate. We will now be able to get the best interest rate possible, saving the taxpayers dollars. With that, that's the end of this look at the fiscal year 26 quarterly budget report. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions? I got a couple. On the what are personal services and the expenses? What is that? Is that salaries?
That is salaries and benefits.
So we're 6% higher this year than we were last year on personnel services? What do you attribute that to?
You're looking at, oh, I'm sorry, I scrolled too far.
Down in the expenses in the green, first line.
I'd have to pull some reports to give you exact answers here. We do know that we're going to receive about 3% annually in increases due to our wage agreements.
Right.
We know we're going to see that. Now, we will see insurance is also a factor into here as well, because when especially now that we're self-funded, this is going to get maybe a little complex, but when we see a personnel expense when the county puts its employer contribution for health insurance into the self-insured insurance fund, and then we see it again when we actually have to pay claims for somebody. So we're seeing the insurance cost twice there.
So, but our FTE counts actually reduced, right, over the last year?
25 to 26, yes, the FTE count reduced a few.
Okay. So AAA bond rating, huh?
AAA bond rating, it's great.
You've been smoking Luckies for the last couple days here?
I was sleeping with my fingers crossed.
So, with related to that, we got ours from Moody, right?
We did.
Does S&P also rate them, or do we just don't need that, or?
We would have to do a separate rating call with Standard & Poor's, and our PFM, our financial advisor, directs us to Moody's, so that's who we use.
Okay,
we don't have to do both. It's one or the other.
How many counties in Nebraska have a AAA bond rating?
I don't know that we got Nebraska specific yet. Do you recall what that email? I believe we got statewide nationwide.
2.
Is it 2?
There's 2.
What's the other one?
Douglas County, which is kind of surprising, but they do. And less than 2% of all the 3,000 counties in the United States have that rating. So that's pretty great.
It's definitely top 1%.
So how much do you think that's going to save us on a typical, like when we issue bonds? It'll save us a 0.5%?
No, it's probably more like a 20 or 25 basis points is what that savings will be.
20 or 25?
20 to 25 basis points, about 1/4%.
Yeah, 1/4%.
Yeah.
Okay. That's still a lot of money when you're issuing
Very significant. We were talking about
$60
$200
million
million.
in bonds, right? Or whatever. it was.
200 million coming up in later this month.
So, math in public, it's a lot of money.
And just to add a little bit to that, so on August 12th, next Wednesday, we'll receive our pricing on those bonds. And then delivery of those funds will take place on September 2nd. So we're less than a month away from having those funds on hand to be able to contribute towards those road projects.
Well, congratulations. Good job.
Thank you.
Takes great hands on the controls of financial management to navigate your way to a AAA bond rating. We've been fortunate in that regard. So I'm glad you kept us on the right trajectory for that. That's a big deal.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I can't take all the credit for that. I mean, a lot of that goes to Bonnie and Scott. They're phenomenal. Suzanne from PFM is just a great team all around in that process.
Yeah, they're pretty good, I guess.
I paid him to say that, so.
So, no, they are good, but you got a great staff too. Let's not forget those folks that are helping you, pull all the right levers. So,
Absolutely. Jenny and McKayla are great.
well, anyways, any comments or questions from the board?
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
your work, Dan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay. Item 7 is executive session. We do not have a need for an executive session. So all agenda items that were published have been addressed, and the County Board of Commissioners is adjourned.